Fala galera do canal, me chamo Juliano. No vídeo de hoje veremos uma televisão australiana mostrando que indígenas brasileiros estão processando uma das maiores empresas de mineração do mundo em 70 bilhões de dólares por destruir o Rio Doce. Ainda é daquela tragédia de Mariana, a história é extremamente triste, então é isso que veremos hoje, mas já deixe seu like, inscreva-se no nosso canal para ajudar na divulgação e valeu!
Facing power, searching for justice. Taking on one of the world's largest mining corporations, Australia's BHP, is no easy feat.
Eu estou na Austrália.
I'm here in Australia because I'm looking for reparation of the damages caused to my people, my community.
No, the river is not alive anymore. The mining companies killed our river.
This chief of the indigenous Krenak people of Brazil is part of a 650,000 person class action suing BHP and its partner Vale in the English High Court for $70 billion. In November 2015, BHP's Mariana iron ore dam collapsed, unleashing more than 50 million cubic metres of toxic mud into the ancient Dulce River, killing 19 people. For Indigenous Brazilian groups, the river is so much more than a source of food and economic growth. It's their god.
When we say father, we also mean like God, like a superior entity, the creator of everything.
The legal team for the Krenak people say they've not been compensated for the loss of their culture and religion.
The majority of the people that have received some form of compensation have had about 200 Australian dollars. And this is nearly 9 years on. It's wholly and utterly inadequate.
BHP denies liability and says it has invested $3.5 billion in a local foundation to help with compensation.
Não é suficiente. There is no money in the world that can pay for what they've done to the river.
At BHP's global headquarters here in Melbourne, there's no obvious signs it's gearing up for what could be its biggest legal battle yet. But in a fortnight's time, the mining giant will face the Krenak claimants in the English High Court.
The battle continues. Carly Williams, ABC News.
Tom Goodhead, a barrister for the indigenous Krenak peoples in Brazil, joins us now live. Tom, thank you for coming on News Breakfast.
Thank you. Good morning.
Well, first of all, can you take us through just what sort of an environmental disaster this was and what impact it has had on the Krenak peoples?
Yeah, so this was a collapse of a tailings dam on the 5th of November 2015 near a city called Mariana in Minas Gerais in Brazil, a state which is quite literally a state of mines. And this was Brazil's worst ever environmental disaster, where about 40 million cube toxic tailings ended up travelling 600 kilometres down the river called the Rio Doce, the Sweet River. And the Krenak people, their traditional lands are alongside the river. They know the river as a watu. It had an extraordinary religious, spiritual and cultural meaning in their daily practices and their daily way of life. And unfortunately, this is now a dead river.
And I think that some people described this sludge as having the consistency of melted chocolate. Just what sort of impact has that had on the wider economy for these people?
So it's been utterly devastating. The tailings contained, highly toxic heavy metals. There've been tailings being found in carcasses of whales and dolphins 9 years on. It's made fishing extraordinarily unsafe, if not impossible, along the river. The Krenak people, for example, had to change their diet from what was a diet which was fished from the river or cattle that they raised. Their land now has tailings on it. The river is completely inaccessible to them in order for them to access their daily normal food sources. They've turned to eating processed food, so there have been extremely terrible impacts on their health and of over 1 million people that this has impacted in Brazil.
Just huge. Look, some of your clients and, of course, your legal team are in Australia ahead of this court case to lobby local MPs and also environmental groups. What are you actually hoping to achieve?
So they're hoping to just draw attention to this. This happened nearly 9 years ago, of course, in Brazil, which is a very long way away, and this trial is starting on October the 21st. But they're really trying to advocate for BHP to do the right thing. We learnt this morning that the CEO of BHP, Mike Henry, together with Caroline Cox, their general counsel, are in Brazil at the moment. In fact, they're in Brasilia, the capital of Brazil, meeting with the president of the Brazilian Supreme Court, meeting with the Attorney General of Brazil. And my client's concern is that they're spending their time negotiating in relation to this this collapse and the impacts of it with the Brazilian government, rather than meeting with them, the victims themselves, and addressing their concerns.
Well, so what message do you want this court case to send to mining giants like BHP?
So it's one of accountability. Obviously, the sums that are being discussed are huge. BHP has a liability to the Brazilian government of potentially 30 billion Australian dollars or thereabouts. You've heard that 70 plus could be claimed in the English claim. But obviously, the money and the financial recompense and the attempts to remediate the environment are important. But the single most important word is accountability. You have to make mining giants like BHP. They hold a social license to mine, but when they break that, when they violate it with something like the collapse of the Fundão Dam, ultimately they have to be held to account, and that's what the aim of this case in England proceeding in 2 weeks is.
And $70 billion is an absolutely astronomical amount. When is this court case being heard? Where? And how soon might it be before any of these victims get any of this money?
Yeah, so the trial is starting on the 21st of October, and if this case doesn't settle through resolution, which is, of course, what the clients want, they shouldn't have to be spending fortunes having to litigate nearly 9 years on. If there isn't a settlement which is reached with BHP, which is to the acceptability of the clients that I represent, this case could proceed for another 3 to 4 years, potentially, in the English courts.
Tom Goodhead, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Então, uma das informações dadas no vídeo que mais chamou minha atenção foi que as famílias que chegaram a receber algum tipo de compensação receberam cerca de $200. E eu nem sei se são dólares americanos ou dólares australianos, que valem ainda menos que o americano. E mesmo que seja americano, cara, é uma quantia assim, irrisória por impacto que causou na região, para as mortes que tiveram por lá, para toda a destruição que ocorreu naquele lugar. Cara, assim, é uma coisa absurda que eu não fazia a mínima ideia que esse ainda estava sendo empurrado com a barriga, que todo esse processo ainda estava acontecendo, que ainda vai ser julgado, por sinal. Cara, é absurdo tudo isso. A empresa alega que criou uma fundação que investiu cerca de 3,5 bilhões de dólares no local, mas tipo assim, sabe-se Deus se esses dados são realmente corretos e se isso tudo mesmo está realmente acontecendo no local lá. É assim, absurdo. É uma coisa assim, absurda que aconteceu naquela região e que sim, acho que a compensação precisa ser extremamente pesada, mesmo que não tenha nem como medir toda a devastação e transformá-la em dinheiro, mas, cara, pelo menos é alguma forma das famílias que conseguiram ficar no local, ou que das famílias de lá que sofreram com isso, de começarem a reconstruir a sua vida. Pelo menos eu penso assim. Comente o que você acha sobre aqui embaixo, então deixe seu like, inscreva no nosso canal para ajudar na divulgação e valeu!